The next is the fun stuff. Yay, what I've been waiting for. Mr. Chris Grimes, one of our beautiful members who has an amazing podcast. And I will just blow a bit of wind in your direction, Chris. When you interviewed me on your podcast and I drove home, and it took a long time to get there and a long time to get home because I got stuck in traffic jams, but you were well worth it because my overriding experience of being with you and being on that podcast was that I had been given a huge privilege to share my story and my journey. So thank you for that. Just publicly, thank you so much for that. And I'm really looking forward to hearing how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Wonderful. How long do I have, or how long do I got? Because obviously
we're 10 minutes probably. Is that okay?
That'll be fine. I'm going to try and share now. Are you all looking at that, and does it animate? If it does, that's good.
Perfect.
So greetings. What a great privilege. And thank you to Christine too. And something really resonant in terms of reciprocity. I so love the islands of coherence in a sea of chaos that I will share with you. So I'm a storyteller. My passion is storytelling. And obviously, I'm going to lead on what's your story. And I've discovered something in the last 5 years, which I'm going to encourage all of us to think about the nature of creativity and to keep on keeping on, stay resilient and keep going, because you don't always know what impact you're having. And then suddenly the universe will remind you that you're doing something fine, that's unique, that's distinct to your own story. So I'm on a trip to do some work tomorrow. So I've normally got this Watch Your Story t-shirt on. Because I forgot it, because I was traveling in a bit of a hurry, I thought I'd just show you a picture of me going, "What's your story?" Just before I help unpack even tomorrow in the leadership program I'm running, one of the best ways to connect with the group, even if you know them really well, is to ask them what their SOD is. What's your SOD? Which is, what's your story of the day, please? And interestingly, just now, when we were talking about what we're all doing for Christmas, the first thing that struck me is actually it's not Christmas but New Year. And this links to my story, which is partly what I'm going to talk about. What we're actually doing is we're going to distribute my father's ashes in Madeira, which was his serious happy place, which is a clearing, or your serious happy place, which is the epicenter of my podcast that I'm going to also describe. But this is storytelling to help all of us. It's called legacylifereflections.com. I'll tell you more about that in a second, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a gift of something, first of all. It's this notion of, and you're going to think, where's he going with this? To be more hummingbird. I'm going to tell you a joke. Do you think that songbirds ever get pissed off with hummingbirds for never having bothered to learn the words to the song? Now, I told that joke as a positional joke to get people hooked and thinking at a festival of sustainability recently, and the hook, all I needed to do was bend it round to fit, was to talk about sustainability. And my idea was that we all need to be more hummingbird, because how can we all sustain, keep resilient, and linked to Christine's wonderful islands of coherence in a sea of chaos? How can we stay resilient when we all feel, or how can we stay sustainable when we all feel like we're barking into a sea of noise, competing for attention, competing now against AI, all vying for attention to get our story transmitted and get our worth transmitted to the world and get some love back as reciprocity. So my invocation to you is, we could actually afford to not succumb to the barking into the sea of noise, and actually energetically keep your own compass pointing true north and be more hummingbird. Because hummingbirds are quiet, they're majestic, they hum in the background, they get the nectar and they clear off. And you're always doing a double take as to what was that extraordinary energy that just hovered in, got the nectar and cleared off again. So I'm just using a deliberate ploy there to encourage you all to be a bit more hummingbird, rather than always feeling that you're barking into a sea of noise. So I'm just going to go back a step now. I'm going to be very slide light, and in fact, I'll stop showing the slides now. I'm going to tell you, if you're still with me, about how I have discovered, and at the beginning, when we were sharing what we're most proud of this given year. I know we've all got different stories. We're all individuals, we're all humans. We've all got different answers to that. But my instinct was to write that what's happened this year is I've managed to dig up a golden nugget that was in a mountainside of storytelling all along. And the storytelling got going 5 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic. I don't know how you found the pandemic, but I found it incredibly challenging. I know we all did. That's putting it a light touch on it. But I now know, with the gift of hindsight, when you look over your shoulder, you can join the dots of storytelling backwards. I now know that if it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have even had the idea that I'm about to share with you. It also involves my father as well, because I got on the open road. The first time I ever shut down Zoom, I know we all did it for the first time. What is this strange new world we're in? The first time I shut down Zoom, I realized it's given me a sound file and it's given me wait, that's a film file. The good listening to show.com was born because I realized that was a podcast right there in those two elements, a podcast and a film. So the Good Listening To Show is called the Good Listening To Show because as a coach and as a facilitator, I'm a drama teacher, actor and comedy improvisation performer by training and background. One of our members here, who was here at the beginning but is not here now, Mark Walmsley, helped me by giving me an operator word. I call myself a motivational comedian, which is a catch-all for everything I'm describing. But anyway, the Good Listening To Show was born because I think of coaching as being about giving everybody a damn good listening to. Legacy Life Reflections is a series strand within the mountainscape of the Good Listening To Show.com. The founding premise being everybody has an interesting story to tell, provided you give them the courtesy of a damn good listening to. And here's a positional statement. For so many of us, our stories can stay locked in, untold, unheard, unloved. And what I'm on the open road of helping people with is to get the unsaid said and the untold told by helping people to record their stories for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late. There's no morbid intention in what I've just told you. My father, Colin Grimes, died a year ago, but about 4 years ago, he was my first willing guinea pig for LegacyLifeReflections.com. And we're returning with my father we're going to spread his ashes in about 5 different places, but one of them is to go to Madeira, which is my dad's serious happy place, which is where the Good Listening To Show, Legacy Life Reflections, is set. I'm going to describe the storyscape now. I invite my guests, and what I love about this is everybody answers this differently, into what's called the clearing. It's your serious happy place. Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think? My father's was spending the last 30 years between Christmas and New Year on his veranda in a wonderful place they used to stay in Madeira, which is why it's totally appropriate and apposite that we'll go back. That was just one answer. So what I'm stirring in you is think about, okay, where would I go? Where would I say my serious happy place would be? Where do I go to get clutter-free, inspirational, and able to think? Once you've told me where your clearing is, I then arrive with a tree in your clearing. And it's a bit Waiting for Godot-esque, a bit deliberately existential because of my acting background. But I'm going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. How'd you like these apples? And then there's a lovely, juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I found this exercise with a wonderful leadership company called Fresh Air Leadership. This lovely man, Dave Stewart, takes business leaders outdoors to walk, talk, breathe, reflect. This 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise is a beautiful exercise, which I'll take it away, use it today to accelerate group cohesion in a really profound way that helps you connect to people. Anyway, back to the podcast. We're in with the clearing and then the tree. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is where you've had 5 minutes to have thought about, here it comes, 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and borrowed from the film Up, which I hope you've seen, where the dog goes, oh, squirrels, and is chasing squirrels. we've all got something called our shiny object syndrome. What are our two monsters of distraction? What are our two squirrels that never fail to grab our attention, irrespective of anything else that's going on in our eclectic and hectic and wonderful lives? Remember, living is a gift. And then the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know, my guest, until you tell us. Next, we stay in the clearing, having shaken your tree. And now we talk about alchemy and gold. When you're at purpose and in flow in your life, what are you absolutely happiest doing, or what were you happiest doing in what you're here to reveal to the world? At this point, we can talk about your halcyon days. I mentioned my father, Colin Grimes, already. His halcyon days were Madeira, but also growing up in Uganda, as I did between 2.5 and 10. My dad and my mum, with 3 children under the age of 8, at my age equivalent of 28, emigrated to Uganda. Those were the halcyon days for my mum and dad, because my sister, many years later, was killed in a car accident. But during the halcyon days, the family were one perfect unit, which is why those were the halcyon happy days. Again, everyone answers this differently. There's no morbid intention, but there is a deliberate intention to get people to think and go deep in how you respond to these answers. So that's our alchemy and gold when you're at purpose and in flow. And then finally, to lighten the mood, I award my guests with a cake. Hurrah! We talk about cake. Do you like cake? If you don't, you're quite strange. And then you get to put a cherry on the cake with stuff like, what's a favorite inspirational quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future? Mine is a quote from Hamlet, which is, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. What notes, help, or advice might you proffer with the gift of hindsight to a younger version of yourself? What's the best piece of advice you were ever given by somebody else? And then finally, we're ramping up to borrow from Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, the 7 ages of man stroke woman, to ask in a moment, how, when all is said and done, would you most like to be remembered? But just before we get there, there's a lovely construct to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going called Pass the Golden Baton, Please, where I invite my guests to pass the golden baton along to somebody else in their life that they love, that they rate, that they hold dear, anyone near, dear, or precious to them. They know that they would really enjoy this process, this journey of being given a damn good listening to through Legacy Life Reflections. And then I ask a deliberately coachy question after the Shakespeare. As the final question, I ask you, as this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, is there anything else you'd like to say? My guests then ring out the sponge, and then you've been listening to me, Chris Grimes, but this has been my guest in the Good Listening To show. And just to share a final story of why my soul is chiming, having kept going with this 5 years on, I mentioned being the long haul of creativity. On day 1, 5 years ago, when I started this podcast, I literally said in the first episode, the day I can speak to Michael Palin, who's my favorite Monty Python, we'll all know that I've made it. Just yesterday, with an extraordinary tilt in the universe and the fact that I'm here now today speaking to you, just yesterday, Michael Palin has agreed to be in my show. I'm going to be doing it live in London.
Congratulations. Yay.
And so dreams do come true, but also just one other thing, and I promise I'll stop in a second. 2 weeks ago, I was gifted with the extraordinary privilege, and what a sincere privilege it was, of a man getting in touch with me to ask if I could possibly record his mother's story, because she's been given a terminal cancer diagnosis and she really wants to do this. And the story that we recorded was not at all about that, but we knew that that was in the background. And normally Legacy of Life Reflections is a private thing, just to record for your nearest, dearest, and those closest to you. But this woman was so wise, optimistic, pragmatic, that I'm seriously encouraging her to go public with this, because my show also gets broadcast across the world with UK Health Radio, because I know that others will learn from our story. But of course, isn't that the truth, and isn't that the case from all of us? We've all got extraordinary stories to tell, provided you give them the courtesy of a damn good listening to. So I'm Chris Grimes. What's your story is my super imperative, and thank you for the privilege of letting me talk to you all about it. Thank you.